Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting. It is 4:30 on Thursday, February 23rd, 2023. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the December 29th, 2020 meeting.
I'll offer a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the December 29th, 2022 meetings. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes have been approved. The next item is the January 26th, 2023 meeting minutes.
I'd move to approve those minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the January 26th, 2023 meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes have been approved. The next item on the agenda is the plat. Consider for approval the preliminary plat of Oak Bluffs 10th edition. City report?
Okay, the applicant, property owner is Dale Bushard on behalf of M&D Properties LLC. The current legal description of the property is Lot 5, Block 1, Oak Bluffs 9th edition. Street address is 1406 to 1446 6th North Street. The land use designation for the property, according to our comprehensive plan, is medium-density residential. Surrounding comprehensive plan land uses are low-density residential to the north and to the west, public and semi-public to the east, and medium-density residential to the south. The zoning designation for the property is R3, which is a medium-density residence district. Surrounding zoning is to the north, we have R1, which is single-family, and R2, which is single and two-family. To the west, we have R1. To the east, we have R1 and an institutional classification of other district. And then to the south, we have institutional other. The current site use, I guess the property is undeveloped or vacant. Area uses, to the north, we have single-family residences and a twin home. To the west, we have single-family residences. To the east, it's vacant, and then the Way of the Cross. And to the south, we have the Diocese of New Ulm office building, and then we also have some vacant property. Notice, none is required. Public comment, none to date. Status of utilities, utilities adjoin the property. Utilities are in 6 North Street, and so they're available to serve this property. Comprehensive plan does not designate a park within the platted area. The plat description, the plat has a total area of 3.77 acres. The area to be platted would convert one lot into 5 lots. Each lot would accommodate one single-family dwelling. The property was originally platted to allow for the construction of 3 fourplexes. You may remember that took place last year. Utility services have not been extended into the proposed lot, are available. Current zoning requirements for a single-family lot in an R3 zoning district are as follows. If we have a box which shows those requirements, so the minimum lot width is 75 feet, the minimum lot depth is 125 feet, and the minimum lot area is 10,000 square feet. And you will note that all 5 lots comply with those requirements. And so we have attachments. Attachment 1 is the preliminary plat, and that's what's on the screen. Attachment 2 is an aerial photograph of the property. Attachment 3 is the zoning map, and attachment 4 is a ground level photograph. Staff would recommend approval of the preliminary plat with conditions since it permits an appropriate land use on the property and complies with zoning requirements. Just to clarify, single-family dwellings are permitted in the R3 zoning district. The recommended conditions, pay a plating fee of $325, the base fee of $175, and $30 per lot. Provide an electronic file of the plat in an AutoCAD 2016 or newer format. That's number 2. Number 3 is revise or replace the development agreement for the subject property between the City of New Ulm and M&D Properties, LLC. That's dated January 20th, 2021. And number 4, the platted area and adjoining 4 lots in Oak Bluff's 9th edition will create over 1 area of new impervious surface. As a result, the Minnesota Control Agency water regulations and the City of New Ulm stormwater ordinance apply to the platted area. This area was not included in the stormwater treatment program that currently serves this general area. Prior to any construction activity taking place, a stormwater treatment facility or facilities must be constructed to serve the area to be platted. I would also note that the property owner paid a fee for parkland dedication purposes in 2000 at the time of the platting of Oak Bluff's first edition, so no parkland dedication fee is required. The motions are provided to approve the preliminary plat and to deny the preliminary plat. And that would conclude the staff report.
Are there any questions?
I'm just going to ask staff, did we receive any feedback from any of the neighbors or any written or oral correspondence?
Well, we don't notify neighbors about plats.
Okay.
And so I doubt whether they're aware of this particular request.
This was all dealt with a while ago too, wasn't it, with neighbors looking at that property?
Well, that was a different development
Oh, that was the
proposal. That
next-
was the
The
3 fourplexes.
Okay.
And I just,
So I would say that this particular request is a type of development that would be more compatible with
The
the
neighborhood.
houses that exist to the north.
Can you explain a little further about the new acre of impervious surface? Where does that come from?
It originated probably from the federal government through the state of Minnesota to local.
No, oh, no, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. Where in this proposed development is there that much impervious surface?
The impervious surface would be from the structures and the driveways
Okay,
that
sure.
are provided.
I just didn't
on
remember
the-
us talking about that when we initially looked at developing this piece of property.
No, when the 3 fourplexes were proposed for the property, that was a
It
requirement
was?
as well.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah.
recall that. Thank
I
you.
think they were smaller, like rain gardens or
That's what they
Type-
were looking at
type of
doing at that time.
an
Yeah,
option.
there are some options there.
Yep.
Thanks.
So basically, that's yet to be determined until they present their plan,
That was my next question, was,
Okay.
because I didn't see anything.
because we're
on it.
just dealing with the plot.
Yeah,
We're just doing, yeah.
okay.
So this is a condition, that would be a condition to the plat approval.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions? Do I,
The individuals doing the
Yeah,
plotting
I
are
was gonna
here
s-
in
I was
case
gonna say
anybody
that
has any questions.
Mr. Buschert is here, if anyone has any questions for him?
I don't have any,
I don't.
because we've seen this property in the past year, so
Okay.
pretty familiar with it, and it'd be
Then
nice
I-
to see it developed.
Yeah, it will be nice. Then I'm going to call for a motion.
I'd motion to approve the preliminary plat of Oak Bluffs 10th edition with conditions as stated.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Opposed? When does this go to the city council?
Their next meeting, which is.
2 weeks away.
2 weeks?
First,
Is it the first already?
I believe it is.
Next week, then?
No,
Oh, let's get the calendar out here.
no, maybe I'm off.
It would be the 7th,
March 7th.
Okay.
March 7th.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is communications. Receive communication from Dale Bushard requesting a change in the city's zoning regulations to allow a residential dwelling unit in a B2 general business zoning district. City report.
Okay, this is something that, the commission considered at your December 29th meeting. The original, the communication came from Mr. Bushard. At that time, he was looking at a particular piece of property that had a legal description of Lot 8 through 10, Block 161, north of Center Street, except parcel 231B on MnDOT Plat 0812. Street address was 927 20th North Street. The property is east of North Jefferson Street and south of US Highway 14, 20th North Street. Now, at that time, it became obvious that we just couldn't focus on this piece of property, that if this was a use that was acceptable for this piece of property, we would have to look at applying that to other D2 zone property. So we expanded the size of the, I guess you can call it the investigation or the review. So the topic was discussed at the Comp Plan Project Steering Committee meeting that was held on January 18th, 2023. And there was discussion at that time, but no decision was made as to how to proceed. So at this time, we have basically two options. One is to allow a residential dwelling unit as a conditional use in the B2 zoning district. And this would require an amendment of the city's zoning ordinance to do that. The second would be to defer the request and reconsider it after the completion and adoption of the updated comp plan. The staff's recommendation is that we defer the matter and reconsider it following the update and the adoption of the city's comp plan. Now, there's some information provided on the staff's reasoning for this recommendation. I think I'll summarize what the staff has provided, if that's acceptable to the
That's fine.
commission. First is that the comprehensive plan, as you know, is an official statement of a local unit of government establishing vision and goals for its long-range development. Comprehensive plan, there's a couple words I think that describe what it is. Number one, it's the backbone of all land use regulation within the city. The second thing is it's also the foundation. So you've obviously seen those pyramids that are sometimes done that describe different levels of activities that might be taking place. Well, if you were doing a pyramid of land use regulations, comprehensive plan is at the bottom. Everything flows from that. So the comp plan guides future development of land, and it's intended to ensure a safe, pleasant, and economical environment for residential, commercial, industrial, and public activities. And I would note that a lot of the information that's provided in this report came from the League of Minnesota Cities. They have a lot of information on these subjects. Now, zoning regulations are different. because what they do is they allow a city to control the development of land within the community, both the type of structures that are built and the uses to which land is put. So it's important to remember that these are two different land use tools that are used in conjunction with each other. So the comp plan kind of is the guiding document and plays that role, and the zoning ordinance regulates what takes place on the property. And state law very specifically states, state statute, that a city zoning ordinance is a tool to implement comprehensive plan. With changes in a city's economic situation, your population development activity, comprehensive plan can become, outdated and should be revised at least every 10 years. I think should be reviewed maybe every 10 years is a better way to put it. If the comprehensive plan changes, then it's likely that you'll need to change your zoning ordinance as well. At its core, planning is a relatively straightforward three-step process. I thought this was pretty interesting. Number one, the community takes stock of where it is at today. Number two, the community generates a shared vision and goals for what the city will be like in the future. And three, the city develops a set of specific strategy and guidelines to achieve that vision over time. And that's exactly what we're doing with the comprehensive plan right now. We're probably just starting step 2, and so we got step 2 and step 3 yet to perform. And so staff comment, there is a kind of a clear progression in the approval of land use documents. You start with the comp plan, and then your zoning ordinance and your subdivision regulations. They're kind of the next step up, and they kind of implement what you find in your comprehensive plan. As noted earlier, in most zoning ordinance, you generally have 4 major zoning categories. Everybody's got residential, commercial, industrial. And then a lot of times there's a 4th, which could be, some people call them public activities, other for institutions, agriculture, and there's a variety of other terms that can be used. From a staff standpoint, I think of those 4 designations, the one that should receive the greatest scrutiny and review is residential. Because residential is where people live, and a lot of times, therefore, that's probably where they spend most of their time. And secondly, it can be their greatest investment, their greatest asset. And so you try to protect residential as much as possible from adverse influences. And so, and for that reason, you'll find that residential properties aren't in industrial zoning districts because of the impact of industrial operations. You do find residential properties in downtown areas. I think that's a result of history where, you had first floor commercial establishments, second and third floor residences. A lot of times those are where the owner lived. Mm-hmm. Now, since that time, you've seen more residential surrounding downtown areas because of what takes place downtown or can take place downtown. Serves as a nice area to live. But there is also, commercial activities generate certain impacts that sometimes aren't conducive or well received, by residential property. So you have the potential for those kind of conflicts. But I think when you make a decision that you're going to live in a downtown area, you also make a decision that, okay, I might be exposed to some things that I wouldn't be exposed to if I was out in a neighborhood. I would note that, you know, the the advent or the idea of placing residential units in other B2 zoned areas, we allow them downtown right now, but we don't allow them on our peripheries on North and South Broadway, 7th North, 20th, South Street, those areas. We do have scattered residential properties in those areas. And that's because they were in existence prior to the city's zoning ordinance in 1968, which was a major change for zoning in New Ulm. Now, to date, I'm not aware of any problems with those residential units. You know, we have residential units in industrial areas too. The idea is that with a zoning ordinance, you're trying to get to a point where, you know, you don't have non-permitted, you know, structures and non-permitted activities taking place, you know, in zoning districts. So in the perfect world, there wouldn't be any residential units in industrial areas like we have. There wouldn't be any residential units in areas outside town. But I don't think there's a community that gets to that point. It's just something that that's kind of the long-term goal. I would note that we did discuss this matter with representatives of other Minnesota cities, and they concurred with the staff's approach that you get the comp plan done first, and then you go back and you review your zoning ordinance for items that maybe you would like to change or items that you would like to add. Matter of fact, you can put into your comp plan. If you think something is important, you can say, hey, it's a goal that we want to accomplish this, you know, in the future. So that's another option that you have. I would note that in June of 2006, just at the start of another comprehensive plan review, we had a similar situation where we received a request for a change both in our comp plan that we had at that time and our zoning ordinance to accommodate it was a residential project. And at that time, both the Planning Commission and the City Council decided that it was more important to get through the comprehensive plan process, get it completed, then go back and look at that particular issue. And so that's fairly similar to what happened or what is being proposed at this time. I would also note that, you know, we have adopted a new zoning ordinance, and during that review process, to my knowledge, I don't remember any discussion about, you know, residential use in the B2's district outside of the downtown area. John did do an analysis of the number of parcels that we have that are zoned B2 outside of the downtown area, and he came up with a total of 209. That's a lot of properties. The New Ulm Economic Development Authority recently completed a comprehensive housing needs analysis for the city, and that was dated October 2022. And that document provided projections as well as recommendations through 2030 on the amount and type of housing that could be built in New Ulm to satisfy, our current demand and future residents. And in that document, there was no recommendation to use commercial properties for residential purposes. The closest thing that I could find was a statement that they encouraged housing programs that will enhance the existing housing stock. Land use decisions have lasting effects. We can all find properties in New Ulm and land uses in New Ulm that are over 100 years old. So they can last a long time, and so that's why you take more of a deliberative approach to land use issues. You want to make sure that what you recommend is, in fact, in the best interests of the community. So you need to look at the pros and the cons and decide, okay, which is more important. Would note that discuss this matter with SEH, the consultant for our comprehensive planning project, and they recommended that we wait until that is finished before we would consider an issue like that. And they noted that the comprehensive planning process should be completed in 3 to 4 more months. So in summary, staff believes that, this is a significant issue. This is something that would be entirely new to the community. Acknowledging that we do have units, some scattered units in these locations. And so we think it's best to evaluate it along with maybe a lot of other things after the comp plan is done. That's kind of a quick summary. We have an attachment, which was the staff report that was previously provided. And then we've got some potential actions and motions. Did you have anything that you wanted to provide? Or?
No, other than in the attachments, we do have a map showing all of the B2 properties. They're circled and highlighted throughout the city.
Okay. I'm going to get back to. Okay. I have a question, and I'm trying to figure out in my mind where I'm going with it. It regards the toward the end of the presentation, and a lot of the significance is laid at the comprehensive plan's door, and it should be, because that's the basis for what the decision is going to be made. I haven't felt the comprehensive plan at this stage that we're talking about, we're going through each section like we did Park and Rec last time. Have we covered this area with any significance in our discussion so far at the planning meeting? And when is that going to be covered?
Okay. This morning I spoke with Mark Nolan of SEH. We have telephone calls with them approximately every 2 weeks. And they have scheduled the land use and the 4 area plans that they're doing. They would like to do that on April 12th.
That would be fine. Because I keep going back, and I went through some old notes and stuff, and I thought, everything has been kind of esoteric as far as what we've been discussing. This section, I think, requires a little more tooth that we break down a little bit more in, even in the discussion in the comprehensive plan of where we may possibly go with some of this, because obviously if you, one of the questions is going to be, are we going to allow, and which part of the business districts do we want to stay business districts and B2? So, okay, it's in April, so that's,
Right.
okay. Are there any other questions?
I've got none,
Dan? And I think everybody, Joe Schatzko seemed to accept what the city was, didn't have any questions either, I know, and noticed in his reply. So I would request a motion either to,
I'm gonna offer a motion to recommend denial of the amendment to the city's zoning ordinance to allow residential uses at 927 20th North Street at this time.
okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I would second that.
I have
No,
a
no,
motion and a second.
If I could just comment, what staff was proposing is that this would be a deferral.
Okay,
And with reconsideration when the comprehensive plan is completed.
I would be fine with that, deferring this until we do further research with our comp plan and
Okay.
outlining and following our goals from our comp plan.
Very good,
All right,
thank you.
I'd agree with that.
you're agreeing?
Concur.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to defer the amendment to the city ordinances to allow the residential uses of the 927 20th North Street. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And are you going to inform Mr. Buschard?
Yeah, I'm gonna discuss this matter with our city manager to see if this is something he feels that the
Okay,
city council should be made aware of, or if it is something that can be handled.
okay, thank you.
Through the commission.
Reports, comprehensive plan progress report.
Okay, as I indicated, I spoke with Mr. Nolan this morning. To date, they have 1,100 surveys. I think he had provided that information previously. Of those 1,100, 700 are fully completed. So we've got 400 partially completed. They are going to keep the survey open through the end of February. And they provided us with some information that we can post online that hopefully will generate more responses. I guess they'd like to get over 700, a fair number. So we'll see what happens. They're starting to tabulate the responses, and he said there's kind of two sets of information that they'll receive. One is from the multiple choice, and he said that'll be fairly easy to tabulate. He said the second set is the individual responses that were provided in the boxes. So that's going to take a little bit longer to tabulate that. And he actually thought the first set of responses, they'd have that information next week. They're doing goals, statements, and strategies for streets, trails, and sidewalks, and then separate one for parks. I would note that they're going to group streets, trails, and sidewalks in kind of one chapter, and parks in a separate chapter. In our current comp plan, I think we've got trails in the park section, so it's going to be a little different. I don't have a guess with that. They've done an internal draft of the economic development and housing sections, so they are working on that. As we talked about land use in the 4 area plans, it's going to be conducted at our next meeting. They've prepared a template that they will use to put the final document together. So they've already started work on that. They're looking at the end of June. They feel they're on schedule. Probably they will be here for the April 12th meeting. And then they will also be here for a joint city council and project steering committee meeting when the final plan is completed. One of the things that they want to look at with the first set of information from the survey is whether they've missed any group. And if they feel that they've missed some groups, they talked about maybe having a listening session or a pop-up meeting to get comments from them. He also mentioned that, things such as goals, strategies, those types of things, those are flexible. He said until the very end of the process. He said you may think you're done, and all of a sudden you'll decide, no, we got to change that goal. So while some of these things may be considered in a finished form, they're actually still subject to amendment and change. He noted that the goals for transportation are apparently on the website.
Yep.
Okay, so if you want to see what those look like, I'd encourage you to look there. And then finally, one of the things that they're required to do as part of their contract with the city is to prepare a marketing brochure. And so that's something that they would do at the end of project. That would conclude.
Thank you. City council decisions concerning planning commission matters in February of 2023.
Okay, at the February 7th meeting, they approved the conditional use permit to Eric Bodie on behalf of the Dayton Hudson Corporation to allow warehousing in a B3 general business zoning district at 1904 South Broadway. I will note that the closing date on this property has been pushed back to early April, which helps things out a little bit from a document standpoint. At that meeting, another thing that the council authorized was an RFP to hire a consulting firm to prepare an evaluation report and then concept design for the intersection of Center and Garden Street. There have been a number of individuals, groups that have asked that the city investigate opportunities to make that more user-friendly, especially for kids trying to get to the rec center. So that's there's been some proposals made in the past for certain types of improvements that are considered. So that's something that will be coming up. At the February 21st meeting, there weren't any items related to the Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you. There is no Heritage Preservation or Heritage Preservation Commission activity at all for the month. So is there anything else that we need to bring before the commission? If not, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Now, if you would like to all adjourn to come down to my house, I've got snow shovels available and